What place does live streaming have on the 6-month mission? I've dabbled with it every now and again. There are a few videos in the It's Always After Midnight series, as I called it back in 2016. And last year I was trying it again when I was staying at my friend June's place up in the Blue Mountains. But in the meantime I'm starting off this 6-month mission of at minimum one video a week on YouTube. And I'm also in the meantime doing my day job and getting out and living life. So is there any point in resuming live streaming? Well, I think there just might be, and that point, I reckon, is exploring the sleek futures and cool machines of video games. Hello and welcome, my name is Rob Farker. I am a 40-something lover of sleek futures and cool machines who's taking his personality and perspective to YouTube to talk about life, the universe and everything, and how to do them all with intent. A quick note at the top of this episode, I would very much appreciate it if you liked this video, if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel, and even pen a polite and enthusiastic and constructive comment below. Your interest, it lets YouTube know that this channel is worth promoting, and it can lead to improving the quality of these videos for you. So I have been into video games, pretty much since the early 80s, like most of my generation. I never really had any consoles. The first one I ever owned was an original Xbox, which of course came out in the very early part of the current millennium. Mainly so that I could play Halo, the only first-person shooter that I was able to play for a decent amount of time without getting motion sick. In some ways I was a little bit behind the ball, but if there was one genre of video game that I always enjoyed and could usually play on the personal computer hardware that I typically had access to, it was the Starship Simulator. We are talking about games like Star Wars, X-Wing of course, but also, and in particular, the Wing Commander series, the first of which came out in 1990 and really scratched that itch of not just jumping into a starfighter and doing battle with dastardly enemies, but also feeling like you were in the middle of a movie when you were doing so. Even though Wing Commander went on to incredible ambition with Wing Commander 3, The Heart of the Tiger, Suki's just decided that she's a little bit bored of daddy rabbiting into her camera and has racked off to the couch. And Wing Commander for the Price of Freedom, which included not just proper 3D graphics for the first time, but full motion video sequences starring a cadre of Hollywood actors, including no less than Mark Hamill himself, playing your avatar in the game, Colonel Christopher Blair. I don't think there has been a game that has quite scratched that itch since, but I'm digressing a little bit because the game that really caught my interest was kind of a spin-off from the Wing Commander franchise, and it was called Wing Commander Privateer. It did things a little bit differently. You weren't the pilot of a starfighter flying off a space-based aircraft carrier in an interstellar war with an alien race. No, you were the owner of a starship, exploring and traveling around a sector of space, trying to earn a profit so that you could upgrade your ship or even replace it with a more advanced model. And there was something that really grabbed me about the privateer way of doing things. I think in some ways, as much as I loved the X-Wings and all the cool starfighters in Star Wars, the Millennium Falcon was kind of where it was at, because here was a ship that wasn't just about traveling from place to place. It was a working ship, and it was also a kind of mobile home for its crew. It was obvious that Han Solo, if he loved anyone, it was definitely that spacecraft. And I don't know, I've been after that kind of experience in some ways in my space-based video games. And I would like to get back into live streaming as a way of finding out what nowadays is available so that I can perhaps scratch that itch. I know full well that memory is a strange thing. The more you take a memory out, the more you tend to polish it. I keep thinking of how one day, after seeing the Transformers, the movie, when I was a wee tacker, finally getting it on DVD in the late 90s and watching it and going, I remember a much better movie than this, so perhaps no game can live up to my memories of what that game was like. And I know I can even get Wing Commander Privateer on GOG. I even have done so, and I haven't really got stuck into it because fiddling with DOSBox is a right royal pain, even if it's meant to be geared to allow me to play. Also, I think in order to play these games, I really do want a joystick, which I don't currently have. Although I am looking at getting my mitts on one this week. And by this week, I mean the first week of December 2024. And there are a couple of games that I think might do and might well be good for live streaming. The first one is Eilte Dangerous. Now, it in and of itself has its own pedigree because Elite was another game that came out in the 80s and was kind of the first one that gave that privateer experience, although I don't remember ever playing it myself back in the day. But I have bought Eilte Dangerous. I got it a few years back, and when I was live streaming back in 2016, Eilte Dangerous was the game I was playing. It was good fun in a lot of ways. In some ways kind of meditative, but also fairly intimidating. It is a very complex game, not just in its gameplay, but also in its universe. It tries to model an entire Milky Way galaxy, well, the Milky Way galaxy, let's face it, as accurately as possible, which means that there are tons and tons of star systems and you can spend your time venturing out across the galaxy, never going back to where you went before. It's kind of scary in some ways. And I like the idea of being able to get to know a sector of space better so that I can trade well, buy goods low in one star system, then go somewhere else and sell them high, so that I can look at getting another starship. And with Eilte Dangerous, there is a particular starship that I have my eye on. I call the Eilte Dangerous side of this thing Pursue the Python, and I will see if I can... Oh, I'm going the wrong way. I will see if I can pop a graphic of the Python here. I'm still working out how to position my hands for a YouTube video. But say, yeah, put it around about here. Drop it in for you folks. There are a couple of different Pythons in the game, and funnily enough, I prefer the Mark I Python, at least purely visually anyway. The Mark II just seems a little bit too rounded, too sleek, and a bit too... a bit too jet fightery in some ways, which kind of isn't my intent. My main other concern with Eilte Dangerous, aside from its complexity, is how difficult the space combat could be. I've got myself a Cobra Mark III, which is kind of like the poster boy for the Elite franchise, and it's meant to be a reasonably good ship, but whenever I venture into combat, I try my best to hold my own, but it feels like in short order, somebody gets behind me, my shields are stripped, and my ship then promptly explodes. And I don't mind combat, but I want combat to kind of be the garnish on the overall travelling and trading experience. Excuse me a moment. Look, leave yourself alone. Sorry, dog is having a go at herself right at the moment. And she's having a shake. So maybe that is one of the challenges and one of the things that I will try if I start doing Eilte Dangerous and initiate Project Pursue the Python and see if I can work out how to at least become competent when going into combat. And combat is something that can be inflicted upon you. You can get dragged out of faster than light travel during the game and be forced to fight a pirate who is keen on taking your ship and or your cargo. So it's not something that I can necessarily avoid 100% of the time. And when it does happen, I want to be able to do it properly, have a decent chance of either winning or escaping with my ship and my cargo reasonably intact. There is another game though that I am curious about, and funnily enough, it is a game that is not out yet. Although you can actually play it right at the moment. And that game is Star Citizen. Now, Eilte Dangerous is sort of an MMO, although you can play it completely solo. You can actually set the game so that you don't actually ever encounter another human being, even though you're still sort of in the same universe and everyone's activities more broadly are having an effect on each other. But Star Citizen is particularly compelling because it's actually being designed by a few of the people who were behind Wing Commander back in the day, including Chris Roberts himself, who was the core designer of the original Wing Commander and went on to direct the video sequences for Wing Commander 3 and Wing Commander 4. So I'm definitely keen to see what he's doing with this game. And his brother Aaron Roberts, who was the main one behind Privateer, is also, as I understand it, even though he seems to be a very much behind-the-scenes guy, he doesn't seem to have appeared in any of the making of videos, as I understand it, is heavily involved in the development of Star Citizen. And Star Citizen is from what I gather, a pretty full-on, massively multiplayer online game. The main focus is still flying ships, but it has a much broader thing in that ships are... In Elite Dangerous, ships have cockpits, and they are unique to the ships. You can sort of look around them while you're in your pilot's chair, but you can't really get out of the chair and venture around the ship itself. The only thing that exists within the ship is effectively the cockpit. And that does have some strengths. It does put the focus on starship flying as the core part of the gameplay, with everything else being pretty much secondary. When you land your ship, you can't even get out of it and go to any locales on the planet or the space station that you've landed on, although I do take that back. Planetary exploration has become more of a thing, but there aren't any... You can't venture around a starport, if you see what I mean. You can access services from within your ship and the display panels there, but it's not like you can go to... You can semi-go to a ship dealership, but you can't go to a warehouse and buy and sell goods, and you can't go to a bar and meet other players in this game, which is a little bit sad. And Star Citizen is going as far the other way as possible. Ship interiors are completely rendered. You can get out of the cockpit, go into the living quarters, go to the engineering sections, and eventually, as I understand it, tinker with the engines or even repair them, especially when you're in flight and perhaps even in combat. And you may even be able to have other people on your ship with you who can fulfill these functions. There are turrets on some of the larger ships that people can leap into. And once your ship lands, you can actually get out of it via its hatches and wander around the places that have been created for you to do so. Even full cities, from the looks of some of the videos that I'm seeing, you can have a living quarters in one of the main starting areas in this game. So it looks very compelling, and I'm curious about it. That said, like I said, the game is technically not out yet. It is in what is called early access. You can play it, but the game is not by, I would say, any stretch of the imagination. It looks pretty solid, the graphics look great, but it's not entirely stable. Features are still being added to it. Significant bugs are still to be worked out, and they are still working on the whole having it available online for people to play with and against each other bits of it. I actually gave it a try a few days ago because it was free to play. Normally you have to pledge to get access to it between, I think, a basic $40 to $60 US. It was a bit janky still. I spent about an hour just trying to work out how to fulfill the basic challenges, because eating and drinking were the two starting objectives, and it took about 20 minutes for a bottle of water and a snack bar, or a burrito, sorry, to actually res into the game on the countertop of the apartment that I started in, which is a bit on the frustrating side. And also a helmet appeared in a box, and one of the objectives was to get the helmet out of the box and put it on. But instead of getting the helmet out of the box, I picked up the box, and I couldn't figure out how to put the box back down again, or how to open it. When you spend about an hour or so stuck at that point, and also the game, even on low settings, seems to have a lot of lag, it's a bit of a turn-off in terms of giving it a go. And I have seen it's a bit frustrating at times. I do watch live streams and videos of people playing the game, and sometimes they're in it and they're having a good time and it's all smooth, and then other times they have issues like I experienced, or the game would just drop out. So I'm not sure whether I will give Star Citizen a try. The thing, though, is much like Elite Dangerous, there is a ship within Star Citizen that I would love to get my mitts on, and it is the Crusader C2 Hercules Starlifter. Again, I'll see if I can put a picture of it here. If not, I think it's going to be in the thumbnail of the video along with the Python. And God, it looks gorgeous. It's like a cross between Serenity from the TV series Firefly and the movie Serenity, and Thunderbird 2, one of my favourite cool machines of all time. I ought to do a video on Thunderbirds at some point, or probably just on Thunderbird 2, because it's a gorgeous ship. From the original to the rather sleeker version they did for the Thunderbirds live-action movie, I think in the early 2000s, to even the kind of between the two that's in the current computer-generated Thunderbirds Are Go TV series. Yeah, it's gorgeous, and I would really like to get my mitts on one. So yes, there are some interesting questions though, as like, where do I do the streaming? I have a Twitch profile, of course, but also I am recording these videos for YouTube, and you can live stream on YouTube, so maybe I do it there. Maybe I see if I can do both. I believe there are ways, at least until you become a partner on one platform or the other, where you have to commit to the platform that you are partnered with. And there are other games I could be playing. Hard Space Shipbreaker. I've got both of the XCOMs, and I have briefly dabbled in XCOM 2. There are the Warhammer 40,000 games like the Dawns of War and the Space Marine 1 and 2. And there are various other science fiction games. I tried Endless Space, although I'm less interested in strategy games, whether real-time or turn-based. And I do kind of want to focus on that core gameplay, like I said, that privateer-style gameplay of having a ship and cruising around the galaxy with it. I don't know, I think that might make for some more interesting video than the other games might. But still, the other question, of course, is where am I going to make time to do so? If I want to stream and if I want to build myself an audience as a streamer, then one of the things I need to make sure is that I'm doing things consistently. And I know a couple of nights a week I have other things. Wednesday night I've got the jiu-jitsu class. One Thursday night a month I have the get-together, the social event in MacArthur. And there are other things, and I would like to be actually spending time with other human beings in real life. So we will see. Perhaps this is just my limiting beliefs talking here, and that's something I need to work on. But out of curiosity, I would like to put it to you folks. What sort of games would you be curious to see me streaming? And where would you prefer I streamed? Would you like to see me on Twitch? Or would you prefer YouTube, which I think might be slightly more accessible? So anyway, that about wraps it up for this little topic. I would like to remind you folks, as I said at the top of the video, please give this video a like and this channel a subscribe if you enjoy this content. It's good to know that you folks are enjoying what I do. So have a good time in the meantime. This is Rob Farker, signing off.